Hello, welcome to my stream. Oh, I guess I'll have some form of posture here. Let's see what you guys have been doing this past week. See what kind of musical creations you've created, or non-musical creations. Who am I to judge? Hello, again. All right, who do we got first? Ice Kayab. I made this for an English project. What an incredible title. Yes, Kaidi, you can send a track. What? This is so wrong.
Best friend put down by a random man, no candy wept his anguish.
So, like, I kind of like the chord progression, but some of those notes are so just wrong. And I'm assuming it's being done on purpose, so, like, okay, but also...
As he heard a dream of mine, we brought him back from life in pain. Don't go, I just want to see you one last time. Don't go, I just want you to know I'm not mad. Don't go.
So is this a song about bringing back somebody's dog from the dead? That's interesting. Fake guitar. I'm never, ever, ever, ever gonna listen to fake guitar trying to be not fake guitar and not say that it's not good. Like, I like when it got to the heavy part, but it needs to have real guitar recorded and then panned hard and left and right. It's like fake electric guitar down the center on top of the vocals is not working out. If we just ignore the interesting note choices in the like arpeggiated part there at the start, if we just get past that, that would be my next suggestion, is like record the guitar part, the power chords, record them twice, 2 separate takes, pan them hard left and right. That leaves room for the vocals in the center. And like, the guitar sounds too loud, but I bet you could have it that loud if it was doubled and panned hard left, hard right. There would be still room for the vocal to exist.
I just want you to keep on dreaming. Don't go. I just want you to know I'm with you. Don't go. Let me say goodbye.
But yeah, I'm having a hard time getting behind the interesting notes that are being played.
Death of a woman, death of a dream. Taken by strength, she couldn't quite see.
Specifically right here. Like, the combination of the fake guitar and those notes just makes me not want to listen to that part.
Back the life that was taken from him. Don't go. I just want to see you one last time. Don't go. I just want you to know I'm not mad. Don't go. I just want you to know it's for you. Don't go. I just want to tell you last goodbyes. Don't go.
Like, I think this part is cool. I like this part. It's a cool part. But yeah, again, doubling the guitars would make it so much better. And real guitars.
Please say goodbye. without my brother.
I don't know where the vocals are from or if you recorded themselves. The vocals sound great. Like the performance, his voice, the pitch, the production on the vocals, they sound great.
Find him dead too high. Don't go. I just wanna see you one last time. Don't go. I just want you to know I'm not.
But yeah, that's what I think. I think if you took this track, you made the finger picking clean part a little less kind of spicy in the melodic department, and then used real guitars and double recorded them and panned them hard left and right, brought the drums up a little bit. The guitar right now feels like it's stepping all over everything in the mix. So that's what I would do. But I like the chorus. Good job mixing the vocals. Don't like the guitar. Okay, thank you. Moving on. This one's called K-Meyer Pyro. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that headroom. That's there for no reason. So this is very cool, especially melodically. It's the first thing that I noticed though was the plucky thing that's panned one way. I think my speakers are reversed, so it's probably panned to the right. For me, it's panned to the left. Anyway, I don't know, panning like main elements without having something to balance them out on the other side, I'm usually not a fan of. So especially for extended periods of time, you might be able to get away with it if it was like just a little section, like a little fill right before a drop. It's like beam, 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 and then back in. But you're kind of like using this pluck sound for a whole measure of the track, and it's not being balanced out by something with a similar sonic characteristic on the other side. So it makes me feel kind of asymmetrical, or makes me feel like I'm leaning one way because I've got this like bright, plucky, transient-y sound on one side. It's kind of distracting. Yeah. So I don't know. I would either like center it and have some stereo width in that element, or I would maybe do a different pluck on the other side so you still have some interesting kind of differences between the left and right side, but it's balanced out in terms of like the sonic characteristics. Mick's got scoliosis. Yeah, a little bit. The next thing is... Just want to make sure I'm not doing anything here. Yeah, the next thing is the drums. So like your kick drum is it's very loud, but it's also very kind of round. Could I buy you a margarita? Maybe. Yeah, it's just kind of like thump, thump, thump. Like there's no real transient to it. So I think that, especially because of how deep the side chaining is, so when that kick drum hits, everything gets out of the way and we're left with just kind of like a thump. Yeah, Raham, send me your credit card information and I'll send you some money. Anyway, I think that the drums just don't have enough bite to them. They don't have enough transient-y edge to them. So I would probably bring the kick drum down just a little bit and then add, I mean, we could try it. I could just add a transient to it and see what it sounds like. If I do this and then I try to estimate the tempo, I don't think it's 150. Let's put this here. $115, $116 maybe. $115, okay. So now if we take like a transient-y kind of kick sound, designer, A, B, C, D, D, E, designer dance, top. Let's try this one. Oh, that's the clap. The drums just in general, it's not just the kick, that's the thing. I wonder if I took like a full-on like house loop and just cut it up and then... Let's see what that sounds like. I'll just tune it down so it's the right tempo-ish. We're not going for perfection here. I hit a bunch of keys and things happened. Oh, dear. Help me, FL Studio gods. What has happened? Wow, that was a lot of fun. Okay, let's try this. Uh-oh. What? Why am... Got it. That was scary. That like jump scared me. Okay, this is the start here. So let's see what this sounds like. Definitely not that clap, but everything else is pretty sick. Like even the top drum. So let's do this and then let's try a different clap. I don't know, random. I'm not gonna find something that sounds good. But I'm just trying to bring your attention to the fact that the drums just aren't, the drums are the weakness here. I don't know, maybe. Let's try this. And then we'll turn it all down and just kind of hit it with the limiter to squish it all together. That's definitely not the right clap, but... Ooh. See what I mean? See the contrast? Like, I'm not saying that these are the right move, but... Add a rim, not a clap. I don't really ever use rim shots. Let's see, house and bass. This one's not bad. Let's try this one instead. Yeah, like melodically, this is sick. I think it's a little bass heavy, generally speaking, in the mix and master. Yeah, there's some DC offset here. It's probably because it's like a PWM signal. So when you think about a PWM signal, it spends more time in one direction than the other, unless it's at 50%, right? So I don't think that's necessarily a problem. That's just the way that waveform looks like. Let's keep going. Yeah, I would say generally speaking, the drums need to have much more bite to them, much more presence, and the track is also kind of it's like muddy, like it's very bass heavy. So I would take those two things and keep going with it. It also sounds like it could have some vocals. It's very melodic and kind of melancholy and emotional sounding. What's up, Alex E? So yeah, I would maybe think about getting some vocals on it. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Good job. Gonna upload that music to Geometry Dash. This is not my music. I'm listening to other people's music, so I will not be uploading other people's music to Geometry Dash. Okay, Lee Wan, L, or Ellie, or LA. So this is very cool once it gets into it. I think that the reverb kind of sounds mono, which is strange. I would probably, especially in the drop, I'd probably take the reverb out, or at least try it and see what it sounds like. I don't know. I mean, the reverb might have some stereo width, but to me, it feels like the reverb is just kind of like this nasally thing in the center of the track that's not really doing a whole lot of value. Also, the intro was like, for the first maybe 10 seconds here, the intro didn't, I liked it, but then once it got to like, around here when the drums started coming in, I was like, I wasn't in love with it. It kind of like, I understood it. I chewed it up and digested it and I got it. But then I was just kind of ready for the next section. So to me, it didn't quite hold my attention. Yes, Aiden, you can send something in. Yeah, I don't know. When it dropped, it exceeded my expectations. I guess I'll put it that way. And that's not necessarily like a good thing. I maybe exceed my expectations a little when the drop hits, but I was not expecting much because the intro was cool melodically and kind of like small and dinky on purpose. Like it kind of sounds like a little almost chiptune-y, but it didn't really feel like it was building up towards something epic. It just kind of like hit me and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So I don't know, take that with a grain of salt. So the kick drum is doing some funky stuff here. It's kind of like overpowering the bottom end. Like you have this really deep side chain that's sucking the rest of the track out when the kick hits, but the kick is just kind of another like muffly, almost similar to the previous track, where it's just kind of, it's like a muffly thump. It doesn't really have a defined edge. It doesn't have much of a punch or a transient. It's just kind of like flabby in a sense. I like the pattern and I like everything that's going on, but when you have such a deep side chain in those moments where the track has sucked out of the song, we're just left listening to this like kind of thumpy. It might be okay for like a slow, like trappy hip hop beat or something, but I don't think the kick drum really fits for this. I think you should probably just use the same. Yeah, I wouldn't switch the kick up. I'd probably just keep the kick the same as it was. You're switching enough up with the track. I don't think you got to change the kick drum in this section. Again, like that's super cool. I love the fill into the drum and bass section. It's very cool, but is there any effects? Oh, there's one little whoop. I don't know. I feel like this is the same thing. I like this section better than this intro. So what I would maybe do is take some of the stuff you're doing in this breakdown section and carry it over into the intro section to give it a bit more value, I guess, or a little bit more interest. But even still, I think you need a little bit more effects to kind of guide us along and let us know that something big is about to happen, because it still kind of catches me off guard, you know, and I'm able to see the waveform, which is kind of like cheating when you think about it. If I was listening to it on Spotify, all I'd have to go off of is the audio. I love that drum fill though. It's fucking tasty. I also kind of think you might be sidechaining a little too heavily, because it kind of feels when the kick and the snare hit, it kind of feels like the track, you can really feel it getting sucked out of existence for, you know, a short period of time, and then it comes back, and it's kind of coming back at not, you can kind of get away with that on like 4 to the floor style music, because that's part of the pump. It's like pumping on the upbeats. It's usually the sidechain is coming up and it's like doom da doom da doom da. So it's kind of part of the rhythm. But in this style of music, I find you almost have to sidechain really tight to the drum that you're sidechaining it to. So like if the snare is this long, the sidechain should be about that long. Otherwise, you get some weird rhythmic pumping, because whether you want it to or not, the side chaining, when the side chain goes down and comes back up, that's in time with stuff. And if it's not musically in time with the rhythm, then it kind of throws off the rhythm. So if you really listen to this section and you listen to the way this music is pumping up, but it's not pumping up in time, like on an upbeat or something like that, it kind of throws off the rhythm a little. especially when you do like the double kick thing. So those are some things to keep in mind. I like the side chaining isn't terrible. It's not way off, but it could be better if it was tighter to the drums themselves. So it's making room for the drums, but it's coming right up after. So there's no real rhythmic element to it. It's more of just like a utility, like you're getting the stuff out of the way so the kick and the snare can punch through the mix. But you can actually see it visually if you look. I mean, you can see this is like the snare, and then this is the rest of the track, and that's like I said, sometimes you can get away with that on 4 to the Floor because it's like rah, 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 like it's very rhythmic and it's usually pumping on the upbeats. But anyway, that's what I think. Let's finish it off. Yeah, it's cool. I dig it. It's strange. It makes me feel eerie, I guess. If I had to put one word on this, it would be eerie. So I hope that's what you're going for. All right, let's move on. Thank you for sending. This one is called Me VP. Idea, which is maybe the chord progression. This is 100% mono, and it sounds like something that would be played in Doom, like the earlier version, like the original Doom. Dude, this is straight up sounds like something from the original Doom soundtrack, which I dig, but did you mean to make it 100% mono? Because there's absolutely zero stereo image here. That is so funny. Sounds like Law and Order at the beginning. You're so right. I think this is sick. It's very like it's like a period piece, you know? It doesn't sound modern by any stretch of the imagination, but I like it. I do think that you should probably it's all with Synth 1 VST. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't have stereo image. I mean, like your drums aren't coming from Synth 1. I highly doubt they are. They sound like a drum machine. But when you're limiting yourself to just the center, you're like missing out on so much real estate that you could be mixing with, right? And you can still maintain that kind of, if you're going for that old school Doom soundtrack style, you can still have that with stereo image. You just, now all of a sudden you have a lot more room to work with when you're mixing all these elements together. This is 100% Law and Order material, like the original OG 90s Law and Order. This is 100% like tracking down somebody in New York who like killed his wife or something. But yeah, I really think that you need to step into the third dimension and start mixing in stereo and panning some stuff around and getting some stereo width in here, because it's very congested when everything's on top of each other. You know, it has the stereo width of a sewing needle right now. So it's tough to get that to sound right. Especially when you have lots of kind of lush elements like you have here. There's a lot of layers and they're all stacked vertically on top of each other in the stereo field. So and synth one, I mean, like you have unison and chorus and stuff on this on these elements. So why not use that to spread some of the synths and stuff into the stereo field? Why not have your drums have very kind of 80s inspired, almost gated reverb? Why not have that reverb stereo reverb? You know, I'm not sure. To me, it seems like you might have mixed it all in stereo and there's like a mistake in the render. But if not, then I think you should consider pushing things out into the stereo field. I honestly love it though. I mean, like, especially when that guitar came in. Like, I could just imagine some powerful female character walking into an office yelling, wearing a power suit, you know, with like all those muted gray and brown colors that everybody wore back then. So good job on that, but please expand into the stereo field. That's my advice for you. Okay, next up, we got Nep Felix, not sure about the techno part feedback. There's something kind of strange that threw me off rhythmically here. I think it's your kick drum and your boom thing. I don't know. Maybe it was just me. So I'm assuming that's what you mean by you don't feel about or how you feel about the techno part. I like it. I think it might be a little overly sub. I don't know. It might just be a little like maybe turn the sub down a little bit because it kind of feels like it's overpowering the rest of the mix. Everything else sounds dope. I feel like this is a splice vocal, which is fine, I guess. But I think the track is really good, and I think it warrants like an actual custom vocal. Yeah, I think the track is dope. I think this techno thing's a little sub heavy, and I think that you should get some actual vocals. And maybe I'm wrong, but usually when you have like one little clip phrase that's being repeated and it's been obviously time stretched or pitch shift or something, there's been some fuckery afoot in terms of the how they sound. That usually indicates to me that this is like a splice sample pack kind of dealio. And I think that the track is good enough that you should try to write it with somebody else. I really liked when it got to the first drop here. I think the piano might be a little bit up front in the mix when the drop thing happens because it's very is it sidechained? It is, but it sounds very loud and it's very present in like the low mid range and something like that. So it kind of sticks out to me on top of them. It doesn't feel like it's in the mix. It kind of feels like it's on top of the mix. So I'd maybe turn that down. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's good as is, like I'm not saying you shouldn't release it with a splice vocal if it is a splice vocal, but I think it would have more legs if you wrote it with somebody and you could have like you could have a verse, you could have a pre-chorus, and you could cut up her vocals or something for the drop section. There's so many, you could take it so much further if you were just like writing it with somebody. So, all right, that's what I think. Thank you very much. Yeah, Gabritias. I never know how to say that. Nova. Gabritias. Gabritias. Just give up on the name.
And I was on Beacon a couple of times with them, and yeah, it's an interesting spot.
This feels very mono. Like, I had to check it because right here, it almost sounded like that's like almost mono. Like, I'm going back and forth between stereo and mono by clicking that little button down here, and I'm not hearing a big difference. Pre-drop, I send it all the way to mono and then back. That's an interesting choice. I don't think I would do that. But yeah, if I just solo the side channel, I mean, I love the drop, and on a system that like at a club or whatever, it wouldn't matter. But when I'm listening to it, it just kind of it doesn't. I don't feel like I'm being submerged or emerged, or I don't feel like I'm in it. I feel like it's in front of me and not like I'm part of it. And I think that that's a lot of what the stereo field does for you. Is it's more immersive, if you will. It makes me feel like I'm immersed in the music as opposed to standing kind of like, in front of it. And what's with this 192 thing that's in there? Why do we got a 192 something, like an MP3 in amongst all of this other stuff? I wonder. I also think that this, not that, that that thing is that's the best part of the track. You should lead with that. Like, it didn't make sense that we're a minute and a half in before we really hear that. Let me see. Yeah, like, I don't know, dude. That thing is by far the best part of this track. Two different projects mashed together. Oh. Yeah, but I mean, like this, after hearing this, this first drop now sounds like the B section to that drop. That sounds more like it should come after this. And this, the build up to it should have that in it. Because it's so good. Like, that is the track. To me, that's the track. The da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na thing. That's 100% the identity of the song, but we didn't get it until halfway through the song. So, to me, you should kind of rethink the arrangement and try basing it more on that little melodic run arpeggio thing, because that's so cool. And like, I love how you've incorporated it at the end. Like, you've got like more sound design focused stuff happening in the drop, but at the end of each measure, you go back to da-na-na-na-na-na thing, and that ties it all together. Like, the second half of this track is dope. The first half it's there's a lot of good elements here, but it's not telling the story like the rest of the track. The track to me starts here. Or wait, let me actually, before I say that. Yeah, the track, this all of a sudden from here on out sounds like it's telling a story. From here to there, it sounds like some cool production, if that makes sense. So maybe rethink it and base the track around that melody of da na 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 na, because you also did a cool thing where you started playing it on a different instrument here. Yeah. So you can like play it on different synths, and there can be different interpretations of that melody and different ways of using it, and using it at the end of measures and doing some call and response stuff. But like you've got a really strong melodic and chord structure in the last half of the song. I don't think the first half of the song does it justice. So I'll leave you with that. That's what I think. I think you did a great job, and maybe rethink the structure. To me, what I bet happened is you started writing it. You were producing it. You were trying to figure out the idea. And then at this section, you started making this section. You're like, oh, this is sick. And then you started writing that. And then you found the idea of the track, but you didn't go back and rethink or retool the first part of the track. You just kind of continued writing. That's what it seems like to me, because I've been there and I've done that. But now what you got to do is be like, all right, well, now I know what the track is. Now I got to write the track again, you know? Luckily for you, it's more of a copy paste sort of thing. So project just got too heavy for changes. Fuck off. Yeah, well, render some shit. Don't give me that. I've been there. I've worked on a shitty laptop and I'm like, come on. I have to turn like serum to draft mode and shit. You can do it. Your computer can do it. Render stuff out and stem it, whatever you got to do. But you got a really great track idea here, and it needs to be I think retooled, if you will. Who said computer? Anyway, okay, that's what I got. That's what I think. Good job. Next up, Freeze, Make It Right.
Deep inside, think that you know. I think you know that you are wrong. Give you one more chance to show that you decide to make things right. Make it 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 right. Oh, make it right. Make it right.
What about this one? What?
So this is good. I think you've made some good progress on this one. I think also you're from like 350 hertz down. You can almost see it. If I bypass this and we look at this on the down in your bottom right hand corner here, let's go like this. So if we look at your kind of overall frequency, you got like, this is like your kick and your bass, right? Kind of from like I don't know, somewhere 3 to 500 hertz down, whatever. It's very loud, and then this is the rest of your track, which is honestly, it's nice and flat, but it's just like it's like literally if you just take your kick and your sub bass and like bring it down a little bit closer. It doesn't have to be a perfectly flat line or anything like that. You should always trust your ears. But the reason why I started looking at it is because I was like, wow, the bass the bass region of this track is disproportionately loud. Like and it's limiting your loudness of the overall track, because now as you push it up to your limiter, it's going to start hitting this shit long before it hits this shit. So if you bring this down, somewhere in line with the rest of the track, and then you bring the whole track up, now everything just got louder. Well, I guess this will come back up to the same volume as it was before, but now all of a sudden the rest of the track is just as loud. So I would go through and take it might be mostly your bass and not your kick. I can't really separate them in just having this file. But with that in mind, I would just try it. It's gonna, depending on your monitoring situation and how used to the track you are, it might kind of sound make it right. That's funny. It might kind of sound like it loses some power, but just trust that if you bring that bottom end down more in line with the rest of the track, you can bring everything up, and now your bass is back as loud as it used to be, but now everything else is louder. So make it right.
I think you know that you are wrong. Give you one more chance to show. Let you decide to make things right. Deep in inside, think that you know, that you know, that you know, that you know, that you know. Deep in inside, think that you know, that you know, that you know, that you know, that you know.
Watch this real quick. Watch this real quick.
And I would be careful with that bass sound. I think I probably mentioned this before, but you got that very prominent kind of peak,
Watch this real quick.
which I believe like your bass sound, it sounds like you have done a low pass with maybe a resonant peak on it. And maybe you've created this bass sound in some other way, but to me it sounds like a detuned maybe triangle or sawtooth with a fairly steep low pass, and then I think you probably have like a big resonant peak, like a high Q low pass, and that high peak, it may be giving some character to your bass that you like, but I think it might also be overcooking it a little bit. Can you ask what my background in music is? I'm completely uneducated in music, but I have done it for a living for 13 years. Up until recently, where now I make electronics for automotive purposes. But anyway, I've been making electronic music since 2004. That's my background. Okay, let's keep going. Like, I like the character of the bass. I like the sound of it, the kind of the wonkiness and the unison and the detunedness and all that. I think that it's representing itself a little too heavily in that, like, that frequency range, whatever it is, 200, 400, something like that, whatever it was. So, I don't know. But besides that, sounds pretty good, dude. Maybe try to wrap it up and move on. Because I know sometimes you can sit there and spin your wheels and actually make negative progress. I can't talk. Let me try again. You can make negative progress by spending too much time on something that you've just beaten to death, you know? So that's my advice, is that you've gotten this pretty close, maybe couple more little tweaks and then move on. Okay, next up, Darcy, Off a Cliff featuring Rio Cragen. Horu remix.
While we dancing through the crib, going back home. So the edge of the cliff, let it push up, let it push up. Hey, wait, baby, we can push it proper. Once we make it home, you know we banging like a chopper. Boy, put me on the flashing lights, got the car.
Okay, I dig this. This is very car edit music, once again. The problem that I'm hearing is in the reverb on the vocals, and I'm not sure if that's something you've added, or I see it's a remix, so maybe that's on the original vocals, in which case you're kind of sunk in terms of that. But if you listen specifically to the reverb, it's very... It's kind of piling up, and the decay on it is so long, and the compression and everything is so aggressive that it's like anytime his voice isn't actively like saying something, that reverb is just kind of piling up in that one kind of frequency range, up around the 7,000 hertz, or I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 10,000 hertz. How about that for being specific? So I would see what it sounds like without the reverb on his voice, if you can. And I'm not saying get rid of it altogether, but now that gives you a big lever to pull, you know, going between messy, shoegazy kind of reverb and then going to like super dry. Now that gives you a cool lever to pull. So if you want this section to feel different, you pull the reverb out and maybe take out one of the pads or something, and then when you want it to change again, you bring the reverb back in, you bring the pads in. These gives you, this is like, when you're writing tracks like this, I find it's helpful to think about like, what do I have that I can add or subtract to create these different combinations? Maybe I build up a bunch of reverb and a bunch of pads and stuff, and then right when the beat drops, I trade all the messiness out for like the 808, the drums, and a super dry vocal. And now that's how I can give this section of the song definition, and I can create a moment that happens. And then, oh, now I want to change it up. I bring the reverb back in. That's a lever that I can pull, and now I've created a new section. I can give that section definition, because I can almost tell just visually that this is going to be just chugging along at a pretty samey pace. Like it's going to be pretty similar throughout the whole track. I see a little thing here that might happen, but and I'm not suggesting you switch it right up, because that's not this style of music. This style of music kind of gets into a groove, and it grooves for a while. But it's still nice to switch to give each section a little bit more definition. Let's listen, because maybe I'm just talking out my ass. Yeah, exactly. So like that right there, that sounds like the start of something new, but it has the same vibe and feel as the sections that came before it. So imagine now if you built that up and you had this little break thing here, and then the reverb was gone, or maybe the reverb was gone before it and the reverb comes back in. Now all of a sudden you have like an interesting moment as opposed to just kind of like a slightly different section than what came before it.
I told her to stop, put it on me proper, let's go. She got more
this is a cool switch up. I like this moment, but again, that the reverb is so prominent in his vocals that like it's just filling in any nuance that might be there. I would love to hear this section without the vocals altogether. Not saying that's the way it should be in the track, but I would love to hear what that section sounds like without like I'm trying to think of like an analogy here. It's like eating blueberries, right? And you could have a bowl of blueberries, but if you put a bunch of yogurt all over the blueberries and fill in all the spaces in between the blueberries and all the flavor of the blueberry is all mixed in with the flavor of the yogurt and the yogurt is always there, you always eat blueberries with yogurt, then you no longer have blueberries, you only have blueberries with yogurt. So maybe I want to just taste the blueberries, or maybe I want to have blueberries with cereal, you know? But if you're always covering everything in yogurt, and in this case, the yogurt is the reverb, then you're just, everything always tastes like yogurt. It just is like slightly different version of the yogurt. So maybe take the yogurt out and just try the blueberries. That is fucking weird.
That girl controls me when she rides slowly. My phone goes when she gets lonely. I'm not satisfied, so you're satisfied.
The timing is weird in this section. It took me like 4 measures to figure out where the downbeat was.
I know she like when I'm forward. She like me better behind. That girl controls me when she rides slowly.
It feels like it's like a 16th note late or something. If the vocals feel like they're off time, this girl controls should be on the downbeat. This girl controls me, right?
I know she like when I'm forward. She like me better behind. That girl controls me.
But it's like happening like a 16th or an 8th note late. So I feel like that might actually be just like a mistake in the project, that the vocal needs to go back in time a little bit to be earlier.
Yeah, might get crazy, but you know this what I like. Find some solace in the corner of the night. Saw the lights get low, but you're bringing me to light. Yeah, let it push, yeah. I let it push, yeah. I do it low.
Yeah, okay, so those are my thoughts on this. I think you got a really cool groove going, but it just kind of like right at the start, it builds up and it kind of hits like this sound. And then it just carries that sound throughout the rest of the track with minor tweaks. And I think there needs to be more definition. This is this section, build up. Maybe there's a little breakdown. Maybe I think overall I would probably take the reverb down on the vocals regardless of what you do, because it's just filling in all of the nuances in the track. So you can't really hear much happening, or use it like that, but then switch it out in a section and take it out. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let's move on. Cheese. Breakbeat 2, sorry for unfinishedness.
mountains steep and we're going down. Can't see a town for miles around. Losing sleep, stones to keep, we've seen it all. Sorry, we're weak. Who's always gonna happen? We just didn't know when. Sorry.
All right, this is cool. I like this. I feel like I'm gonna have the same feedback for you as I did last time, which is the vocal performance slash tuning slash mixing feels a little insecure. So like what do I mean by that? The it's soft, it's softly sung, and that's not necessarily a problem. That's not necessarily a sign of self-consciousness or anything like that or insecurity. But when you combine that with the way it's mixed in the track, I don't know that I understood a single word because it's so the track is kind of bright and there's a lot of stuff happening, and then you're kind of singing very softly amongst all of this like
The mountains steep and going down. Can't see a town for miles around. Losing sleep.
I don't know. I think you've got a good voice. I just think that it's not loud enough in the mix, and I think that the elements that are happening, there's a lot of bright effects and stuff happening. There's a lot of busy drums, and that becomes challenging to make a soft vocal cut through all of that, right? I think also last time I mentioned you should like invest in Melodyne, and I feel like you're using some sort of auto tune, kind of either auto tune itself or some other automatic tuning software, which is fine if that's the effect that you want, but you shouldn't rely on that for actually tuning your vocals. You should have the vocal performance solid before you send it into any sort of auto tune, because that way you have more control. And there's some notes where the auto tune wasn't quite sure which note you were trying to hit, so it's kind of fluttering back and forth, and you can avoid that by tuning the vocals before you go into auto tune. And then you may find that you prefer your vocals not auto tuned. You can just tune them with like Melodyne to fix any little pitch issue in the performance, but you're not using auto tune to just kind of like a lazy like here take this and fix this vocal, right? If you like the effect, that's fine, but I think you should tune your vocal before it hits auto tune. I think that's usually a good rule of thumb. But I think the bigger problem here is like it's a very softly delivered vocal, and the track has a lot of like energy and brightness and busyness going on. So it's hard to really that vocal almost sounds like it should be played or sorry, not played. It should be sung over top of just like a very basic like piano playing chords with maybe a little bit of rhythm or something, but over top of a breakbeat, it would be challenging to get that vocal to cut through and be intelligible. Especially like I love this section. I love the sound of like this kind of drony pad thing that's happening. But when you think about where that pad lives, it's basically living in the exact same area as your vocal. So your vocal is fighting. I'm assuming you had whatever that is in the drop too. Yeah. So you have this big kind of ball of drony melodic pad sound that's living in the exact same area as your voice, and those two things may not be able to coexist very well because they're kind of competing. Yeah, I think Kadi is right too. Like a lot of it has to do with the performance, and that's why I said like it feels like that vocal would be more at home just on top of like piano chords and not the rest of the track kind of vibing along, right? So maybe practice the track, get a little more comfortable, and then deliver a little more power with the vocals. You don't have to be belting it out. It doesn't have to be Meatloaf, but like, you know, I think Kadi is right. The performance should match the track a little bit better. Either that or strip parts of the track down to very basic instruments, sing on that, and then build it up and then drop more instrumental-ish with the breakbeat sessions. That would work too. Like this section here, if you didn't have all the crazy boom, boom, all that stuff, if you maybe stripped it down to a 4-to-the-floor kick drum with very minimum rhythm and just the chords, and that might be a good place for your vocal to live. And then it's not as much about the mixing as it is about the arrangement and production of it and the choosing when to use your vocal. Because this section right here, like even that without drums at all, just take the drums out completely, put your vocals over that section and see what they sound like. I bet you they would fit really, really well there. But yeah, I think that's what I would do, dude. I think you should get Melodyne, some version of it that allows you to tune your vocal before it hits your auto tune so that you can get the performance sounding right. I mean, ideally, you would just practice, improve your singing, and then, but even, I mean, I've worked with amazing singers and I still use Melodyne to correct little bits and pieces to, you know, like, oh, that was a great performance, but she was a little flat on that one thing, you know, like, just, whoop, they're done. So, anyway, that's what I think. Good job. Vivo, this one's called Shine. Is that 5/8? Am I counting that right? So I think this is sick. I really like this. I think it's muddy as hell. I think that's the main issue here, especially if you watch over on the bottom right there. See how this is just kind of like, it's just constantly trailing down. As the frequency goes up, the amplitude goes down. So there's a lot of like, I don't know if it's like your guitar or even your drums don't have a whole lot of brightness to them. Hold on a sec. Let me close Slack. I haven't used Slack in about 6 years. I don't know why I still have it on this computer. There we go. Yeah, the biggest thing is it's just it's muffly. I would consider this mix muffly. I love what it's doing. Like, I love the track, and I don't think it can be fixed in the master. I think you got to go and figure out individual tracks. How can I get a little bit more brightness into this? I think your vocals, you could probably boost some higher frequencies up in. But also, like, you've got this big kick drum, and then the rest of the drums are just kind of... Sorry, you have like an electronic dubstep kick, an electronic dubstep snare, and then you kind of have like this like acoustic drum kit thing chugging away underneath, but it's very quiet compared to the dubstep kick and snare. And this track doesn't really feel like a dubstep kick and snare kind of thing. I don't think the sound of it sounds wrong, but I think the volume of it, like the kick and the snare are like trying to rock out, and then the rest of the track is just kind of like chilling, you know? So I think maybe a first step would be to bring your kick and your main kick and your main snare down a bit. You know what I mean? Like the you got like the acoustic drums underneath, but they're a bit muddy, they're a bit low in the mix. And the kick and the snare to me just doesn't, I don't think it should be like that powerful. 'Cause that on its own sounds great, but maybe the kick and the snare is setting my expectations incorrectly. You know, when I hear the big kick and the big snare, I kinda expect, like, more brightness, more power, but the track is kinda chill besides the kick and the snare, so, I don't know. I don't really even know a good reference to give you for this style of music. Almost sounds kinda like Postal Service, Postal Service or, Death Cab for Cutie, like, those people, that it kinda sounds similar to that. You do want it to have power? Well, I don't think that your elements I don't think there's any sort of mixing or mastering that you could do that would give those elements power because they're chill. Like, to me, I listen to this and it feels chill. So it might be challenging to make it have, you know, power per se, unless you like drastically change the track. I guess I'm not really sure what you're going after because if I ignore the kick and snare, it feels like a Postal Service song. Like it feels like an emotional, kind of sad, a little bit melancholy, like vibey track that I'm like grooving to. It doesn't feel like something that I want to headbang to. So I don't know. That might be challenging. I'm not really sure exactly how to help you make this more powerful per se. That might be a pretty uphill battle, if I were to be honest. I don't know. It just doesn't sound like that kind of track to me, but it's also not my track. So I hope you find what you're looking for. It's not you, it's me, and other things that people say to people. I dig it. I just think you're having a bit of an identity crisis between whether this chill track should be loud and powerful or chill. So, yeah. Sorry if that's not very helpful, but that is how I feel. Okay, next up, Sky Nova Only One version 1.
Cold feelings in the night. Why do we have to keep on fighting? Ooh. But you're the only one, only one, only one, only one. Only one, only one, only one, only one. Ooh.
It almost sounds like Sky L singing. So, which is funny because Sky Nova. Anyway, my first thought is like, what would that background synth sound like if it was a sawtooth instead of a square wave? Because like square waves typically come with a bit of cheese factor, you know, like especially a detuned square wave. It kind of just has like it just kind of by default has a little bit of a cheesy like chiptune vibe, and the rest of the track kind of sounds epic, but then the detuned square wave, I don't know, it might undermine that a bit. I would at least try switching that out to a sawtooth and see what it sounds like. I think sawtooths generally will have a bit more bite, a bit more like badassness and less kind of innocent, like childlike curiosity like a square wave does, but maybe that's just my brain. Okay, this drop is sick. I think you got to tease it a little bit before you hit us with it though, because it's like everything's like very chill up to that moment. I'm not exactly sure how you should tease it, but I think you should give us a bit of an indication that that's about to happen. What's up, Cast and the gang? Thank you for enjoying my music, I guess. Is that a weird thing to thank somebody for? I'm not sure, but I'm glad that you like it. So my next thing is, if you mute the thing, how loud is everything else? Because it kind of sounds like the rest of the track is existing much lower in volume versus the thing, especially if you listen. There's like the like this sound. Bass. Like that kind of sound that's in the background, but the is so loud. It sounds like it's the only part of the track that's at full volume, and the rest of the track kind of feels like it's a bit underneath that. So again, what I would suggest doing, which I suggest quite a bit, is take that element and turn it down, right? Turn it down so it's more in line with the rest of the track, and then turn the rest of the track up, because that one element is really limiting how much you can limit the track in the master bus. So you're going to limit until you start hitting that, and then all of a sudden you're going to get a bunch of gain reduction on the master limiter. But if you snip and sketch, please. Thank you. Oh, this is new. Why? Anyway, whatever. So, initially, if you brought that down to this level, it's going to sound not loud enough. But now in the master, you can turn everything back up. And if everything is up, then those peaks are right back where they were, but the rest of the song is now there with it. So I think that's what you should do. Is I think you should turn that chunky, choppy thing, the main element of the drop, turn it down a bit so that you can turn everything else back up. And your kick and snare might be right up there too. You might have to turn that down a bit as well. But I just find that you kind of have like this like really in my face element, and then like 10 feet behind that is the rest of the track. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think your kick and snare are cutting through. Is that thing even side chained at all? It's a very cool sounding thing, but I can't hear, I can't even really hear the drums. All I can hear is that ga thing. So I think that needs to come down quite a bit so that the rest of the track has a chance to survive. I also feel like, halfway through the drop is when I kind of felt like, okay, I'm ready for maybe a little bit of a different thing. I felt like that the first drop. I didn't listen to the whole second drop, but I'm assuming visually that it's going to be the same thing. It's a little repetitive. So you could do something like, instead of rum da 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 da, maybe it's rum da dun da dun da dun da dun dun da dun da dun da da. Like you switch up the rhythm or something, still get the choppy chunkiness of it, but then like it just switches it up and gives us a little like, oh fuck, that's cool. Like give us something new to chew on. I'd probably change it halfway through the first one too, because when I was listening to it, I was like, "Hey, this is cool, but like, I get it. I'm ready for the next thing," So it doesn't even have to change that much. It could just, instead of constant 16th notes. It could be, you could skip a few 16th notes to create more of a phrase instead of just da 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 da, you know, something like that. That could be really cool. But I think the main thing here is that that element is just so loud that nothing else in the track feels like it matters that much. I feel like I'm just listening to this almost like soloing. I've soloed this stem of the track and I'm listening to the chunky choppy thing. Okay, that's what I think. Good job. It's very cool. Turn that down, make money or something. I don't know. Okay, next up we got PGX Rising Up Remix Contest.
Set me on fire. You can watch me burn tonight. Can't put me out, I only burn brighter. So turn away, cover your eyes. 'Cause you can hit me with everything you got. But I won't stumble, no, I won't ever stop. The revolution, can you hear the sound tonight? Yeah, we're rising up now. We're rise from the ashes so strong. We're born and we'll be hands on the end. Lay down in the dirt for so long, it's time. We're rising up now. All times I know you've been through. When we're down every time we come back again. Things are changing for me and for you. We're rising up tonight.
Okay, before we get to the drop, one little thing. Get rid of the top drums there. I think that the drums should end right. Very minor, but also I think important.
Cause you can hit me with everything you got. But I won't stumble, no, I won't ever stop. The revolution, can you hear the sound tonight? Yeah, we're rising up now. We're rise from the ashes so strong. We're born and we'll be.
So, one thing that I kind of noticed the first time is when she's singing that spot, like right.
Rise from the ashes so strong. We're born. Rise from the ashes so strong.
It's kind of getting a little aggressive in that frequency range, and the synth that comes in, the that thing, is kind of living in the same spot. I'm not really, the reason I didn't mention it before is because I was like, I don't really know what advice to give, because I love the vocals and I love that synth sound. Maybe you could low pass the synth sound while she's delivering that part, and you could be opening that synth up to be developing it and growing it and having it build up, but have the vocal still the main element. And then by the time it gets to like the drop section, that's when we're focusing on that synth sound. But is that what was in the drop? Yeah, you could do that. So she's singing, but to me, I'm having a hard time paying attention to one versus the other, because they both I like both of them, and they both feel like they are the main characters, and it's kind of conflicting. So what you could do is, low pass it down and maybe bring the volume down a little bit and have it slowly opening up as we're getting closer to the drop. And then when we get right here, we finally get the full and it's a bit of a payoff as well, right? Like you've rewarded us for getting to the drop section by giving us that full on synth sound. The little side stick, I like the sound of it, but it's kind of like loud and sharp. Like it kind of like the first time I heard it, it kind of made me, oof, that's sharp. I think you could also high shelf for vocals up a little bit in the high end. They feel a little bit muddy. Did you do you want to send one in, Amp? Sorry, I'm really bad at it. You know, I should just sit down and bang out like 10 weeks worth of feedback streams. Anyway, sorry. I think you're being sarcastic. I think. Anyway, yeah. I think I think this is a good track. I think solving a few of those little issues will take it a lot further. Okay, cool. Let's check out Kadia's Hellbound, Even If We're Saints. Oh, that's unfortunate. So right off the bat, I think that this section at the start is like very quiet. You could, I mean, visually see it, but also I was listening, and then as soon as it got into the beat, I was like, whoa, that's a lot louder. It doesn't have to be as loud as this, but it should probably be, you know, maybe like kind of sitting in this area, maybe like another 3 or 4 decibels of loudness, just so that it more closely represents how loud the track's going to be. Because when you start playing the song, somebody might go and turn it way up because they're like, oh, my stereo must be quiet, and they turn it way up, and then it gets to that and it's like way too loud and they got to turn it back down. So I'd probably bring the elements at the start of the track up a bit.
I'm in a nightmare that someone bought and sold. Can't believe in karma with these devils dripping gold. They burned the town square, they left us high and dry. Said we're bound for glory, but I know these villains lie. Can you feel a cold wind blowing? And the shadows keep on growing. Now I hear that whistle blowing. I know where we're going. It's close to sundown. Someone get me out of here. No way to slow down or run.
Okay, this is fucking very fun. It makes me feel like I'm on an adventure. The vocals I think are mixed a little low.
That someone bought and sold. Can't believe in
Especially there, like when you're singing in your lower register, I feel like the vocals aren't very present in the mix. When you go up to the higher pitch stuff, it feels right. It feels better in the mix, but up until that point, it feels a little under not loud enough. Don't know why I had such a hard time saying that.
lie. Can you feel a cold wind blowing? And the shadows keep on growing.
Then I think your ride cymbal that comes in here is a bit too loud. Like it's almost louder than the vocal.
Now I hear that whistle blowing. I know where we're going.
I think overall, you probably should compress your vocals a little bit more. To me, they kind of sound a bit like a raw recording. Like, I'm sure you have some compression going on, but I think you probably need a little bit more compression so that you can more easily place it in the mix. Because that's something, I mean, that's not the reason necessarily why we compress vocals, but it is a nice side effect that if your vocal is compressed and it's always about the same volume, it's a whole lot easier to place it correctly in the mix, then if one set of words is quieter than the next set of words, you know, how are you going to get those two sets of words to both fit in the mix correctly? So I think you definitely are not over compressing your vocals. So I think you could maybe go a little bit more aggressive on the compression and try to get the dynamic range down, and then try to get them a bit more present in the mix. I really like the stereo pan harmony thing. It sounds really good.
I know where we're going. It's close to sundown. Someone get me out of here. No way to slow down a runaway train. We're on a one-way track and it's becoming clear that we are hellbound, even if we're staying
I would probably right here.
to sundown. So
I would not come in with. I would at least try not coming in with the hi-hats. Just come in with the doom da doom da doom da doo da doo da doo.
to sundown. Someone get me out of here.
I think the hi-hats could come in. I think the hi-hats should go down at the very least, but I think the hi-hat should come in kind of as we're getting closer to whatever we're building up to, not right off the top. I think it would be way better without the hi-hats, just with the boom bay boom bay. I think that would be a good move.
We're the saints. They're on a mission to rid the world of sin. Trample all the flowers that I keep beneath my skin. This premonition.
I'm also wondering about the shuffle on the hi-hats. I'm wondering if the shuffle, so there's like a strumming guitar. The track kind of has a very like it has a very shuffly feel, but I feel like the hi-hat is just kind of more straight.
Down, someone get me out of here. No way to slow down a runaway train. We're on a one-way track and it's becoming.
It doesn't, the hi-hat doesn't feel like it's grooving with the rest of the track. It just kind of sounds like it's on top of the track, kind of hitting straight eighth notes. There may be some shuffle, I can't quite tell, but I don't think that's the same shuffle. If you look at where the hi-hats land on every other 16th note, and then you look at like your strumming guitar, what other rhythmic element you have that has swing, you might find that the guitar is a little bit later than the hi-hat on the every other 16th note, if that makes sense. I wonder how I could demonstrate that, like this piano roll. So like, if this is your 16th note, this is kind of what the hi-hats feel like to me. Yes, there's some like velocity stuff happening, but I don't find the velocity stuff is terribly natural sounding. I find the velocity stuff feels a little bit arbitrary, like where it's not like, this is like what a typical kind of drummer would play like. That's the kind of pattern velocity wise, but yours kind of just feels kind of like it's like almost randomly chosen velocities. But also this is what it kind of sounds like. I could be wrong, but maybe it's the velocities that's throwing me off, but it sounds like your guitar is kind of doing like a shuffly thing like that, where every other 16th note is late. That's what shuffle is. And your hi-hat is just kind of doing straight 16th notes, or maybe it's doing a little shuffle, but it's not as shuffly as the rest of the elements. So when you have shuffle in your track, one thing you usually have to do is make sure that all the shuffles are shuffling together, you know? Because if they're not shuffling together, it's a bit confusing rhythmically, because I'm like, well, is it shuffly or is it not shuffly? Anyway, that's something to look into. Let's keep going.
To rid the world of sin, trample all the flowers that I keep beneath my skin. This premonition ain't written in.
And then like your open hi-hat 909 hi-hats, I don't find that they fit. I don't think they fit the track, or at least not in this section. Because you gave us a little break from the 909 open hi-hats here, and I found that it sounds better. Premonition ain't written in the stars. It stole the I don't know. I don't know if the 909 hi-hat is the move because the track is kind of like organic, like almost somewhat traditional, and the elements and instruments that are in it are very natural sounding, right? But then we have like a 909 hi-hat and it kind of sticks out a bit like a sore thumb to me, which I have a sore thumb right now. I took a big chunk out of it with a grinder. Anyway, I digress. Let's keep going.
Now they got a knife at our throats, and they're putting on a blindfold. But I hear that whistle blow. I know how this goes. It's close to sundown.
That's fun. I like the little woo.
It's close to sundown. Someone get me out of here.
I would straight, because even the ride symbol is like a 909 ride symbol, right? And I don't know, I would maybe take out like the stuff that's not natural and just lean into the more acoustic stuff. Because I don't know. I don't know if this track really calls for it. I don't know if the track calls for the electronic elements. Everything else is everything sounds great, and then the 909 drums just kind of feel like they've been added on top of it. And I know that when it gets to this
Sundown, someone get me out of here.
just getting rid of the ta 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 is going to make a big improvement, I think.
Even if we're saints, hellbound, hellbound. Even if we're saints, hellbound, hellbound.
I mean, like, if you wanted the drops to have dubstep EDM elements, I don't know if putting like 909 hi-hats is accomplishing that. I think it's just taking one semi-awkward step in that direction. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just, to me, when I listen to it, I just feel like this is like, it's like a bit more of a organic track. But I don't know. If you want to keep going in that direction and make it I personally don't think I have any ideas to offer you on how to make it more EDM, because this doesn't sound EDM to me. It sounds like a kind of traditional leaning folk song. And I dig that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It might be a bit contrived to try to make it EDM-ish. The one thing that did come to mind was back here.
And the shadows keep on growing. It's close to sundown. Someone get me out of here. No way to slow down a runaway train. We're on a
Like, this could maybe sound like a build up to some sort of EDM style music, but it's like you're kind of taking a half measure. Like, you can't just kind of make it EDM. You have to kind of make it EDM, you know? You have to like abandon all hope of organic sounds for the sections that you want to be EDM. And I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't do it, but that's just me. Let's keep going.
here. No
Oh, where did I leave off? Before that, where did I stop listening? Let's go.
It's close to sundown. Someone get me out of here. No way to slow down a runaway train. We're on a one-way track, and it's becoming clear that we are hellbound. Even if we're saints, even if we're saints, hellbound, hellbound. Even if we're saints, hellbound, hellbound.
Like I love the track. It's a dope track. It just, to me, I think you should turn up the vocals, and I think you should not try to make it an EDM track. That's what I think. I think it's a fucking sick folk track. It's catchy as hell. Great vocals. Like everything's great, but it's just the 909 drums just ain't doing it for me. So yeah, that's what I think. I really like the acapella part too.
Here, down, someone get me out of here. No way to slow down a runaway train. We're on a one-way track and it's becoming clear that we are hellbound, even if we're saints. Even if
There's one little thing here.
we're saints.
It's the S on Saints.
Saints.
It gets a little whistly in that one moment. It might be happening in other spots that it's just being masked, but in that moment I did notice that the S was a little whistly.
Saints. Even if we're saints. Hellbound.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the S's didn't bother me the rest of the track. It was just that one little section. But I don't know. I think it's a great track. I think it's like an actual song. You know what I mean? It sounds like an actual song. So I don't know. That's what I think. Thank you for sending. All right, we got Daniel Q Gaia, I think is how you say that. Okay, there's a lot of really cool elements happening here. A lot of like tasty little ear candies, and I really dig it. It's very scooped, meaning there's a lot of bright elements, there's a lot of deep sub elements, and then there's kind of like this like scooped out mid range. So one thing I would do to begin with is, do you see how you have all these, the majority of the track is like, hold on, I will finish the sentence eventually, I promise. So the majority of the track energy it's about this loud, right? Then you have these very sharp peaks that are going to really limit you in your master bus in order to get, this level more like here. So I think it's like your finger claps and maybe like a plucky synth or something has a very sharp transient. Is it? I would try to figure out exactly what I think it might be the clippity clappity claps that are happening. And what I would do is I would send them into, I would bus all of that kind of percussive stuff together into one bus. And then I would like chop off the peaks a little bit. So for example, even in the master bus, I wouldn't do this, but I'll just demonstrate. If I take a wave shaper, do you hear any difference between me cutting those tops off and not? Because I don't. Oh, sorry. Let me make this larger so you can see what I'm doing. So if I go between not mix, like draw none of this and all of this, you'll hear very little difference. Right? But what I'm doing is I'm chopping off those big sharp peaks. And now what I can do in the master is But now watch what happens if I turn off my wave shaping leading into the master. See how much more gain reduction and pumping we're getting in the master bus because of those tiny little, I need to like make more room on my screen for this, hold on. Because of those tiny little clippity clappity sounds that are really shooting through your mix, that's going to limit how much you can push the track in the master bus. So if you take all of those really clippity clappity sounds and you put them into a bus, they might all be in one track anyway, so that might be unnecessary. And you just cut off. I mean, I could go even further. See that? And now there's no gain reduction in the master, and you can't really hear anything bad happening because I'm not clipping down into the meat of the track. I'm just clipping these tiny little peaks out of the track. And when you clip something, you're adding high frequency information. That's what clipping is. You hear the crispy, buzzy, clippy sound is high frequency shit. But all the clippy sounds are all high frequency shit anyway. So now I'm just taking something that's high frequency and making it maybe slightly different high frequency. But what I'm achieving is now I can hit this master limiter a lot harder. Hear how much louder the whole track is? Now, if I'll turn the whole bus on and off. How can I do that? I'm sure yeah, it's right here. Let me bring my mixer over and then watch. Listen to the difference. And I'm getting almost no gain reduction on the master. I could go harder. So without and basically all I'm doing is I'm controlling the dynamics of some of those pokey elements, the elements that have these tiny little fingers sticking out and poking the master limiter for no real reason, right? Because we're not hearing those tiny little fingers, but we will hear the master limiter react to those fingers. So what I'm doing is I'm chopping those fingers off 1 or 2 knuckles down from the fingertip. And that allows me to go harder on the master limiter. Okay, so let's undo all of that. We'll just do this. So the next thing is, how do we get some more mid-range into this track? Okay, we could go into the master bus and just boost that frequency range up, but that usually, if it seems too easy, it's too easy. So that would help. We could do that. So let me try that. In fact, I'll add the clipping back in so that we can continue on this mastering journey. Let's turn this back. Like, this is like an amazing example for this sort of thing because of when I turn it off versus when I turn it on. You can start to hear a little crunch when the kick and the clap hit at the same time. So I probably have gone a little too hard, but I'm also not suggesting you do this in the master bus. I'm suggesting you do this on a track by track basis as needed. But now let's go and just boost some like mid-range. So like that's now helping us fill out that frequency range, but there's some elements that are too pokey now, like your shaker is being misrepresented, it's being too loud because of this. So what you got to do is go into your mixing and try to figure out what elements do I have in my mix that I could boost that frequency up in to fill that hole naturally, as opposed to just boosting everything in that frequency range in the master, because now maybe that synth sounds right, but the shaker's too loud in that frequency range because we just boosted everything. But anyway, so I would do some of that stuff. And a lot of the times you don't realize that that needs to be done until you render it out and you're like, "Oh my God, look at how loud and yet how short of a time that sound happens." It's probably like the finger snapping sounds or something. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something that is like the rest of the track is just chilling down here, and then you've got these tiny little things poking out and hitting your master limiter and limiting how much you can limit it. Now my next thing that I'm going to say is, hold on, let me just undo this before I forget. Okay. The next thing is, this part was super cool. This like that synth sound is kind of dated. Like I'm not a big fan of that synth sound. It makes me think of like synth Six Flags or like Crazy Frog, or you know what I mean? Like the I don't know. Everything was it was going super cool, but when it got to that section, I was like, okay, this is a little on the cheesy side. And that could be taste. That could be me not liking that specific kind of sound. Or like the Mortal Kombat theme song or something. Like it just sounds like 90s dance music, but the track leading up to it sounded like modern, cool, kind of deep house vibes. You know, it's cool, but then that like detuned sawtooth thing, I felt added a level of cheese that wasn't warranted. I think that maybe you could have a synth bass that's playing, like you kind of have like this super deep fundamental subsection, or sub bass, I mean. And it's funny when I read a comment and talk at the same time and then the words just get mixed together. You have a super deep sub bass and then you have the rest of the track, but there's no real like character bass. There's no bass that you could hear if you were listening to it on a cell phone. If you listen to this on a cell phone, you would hear it's not your bad. I'm happy when people talk in chat. I just need to not look at it when I'm talking, which is challenging. Anyway, yeah, I think if you listen to this on your cell phone, you wouldn't hear any bass at all. So like the bass isn't perceivable except on a subwoofer. So maybe that would fill in that mid-range section if you had like some cool bass that was playing that worked with the sub bass to accentuate what the sub bass was doing, but gave it a bit more color, a bit more harmonics up into the mid-range. And you have some really cool little sound design things happening, but they're very short, brief, and quiet. And I'm not really like there's some cool sound design, very sparingly used. And then you've got like the cheesy super saw not sparingly used. So I feel like if you kind of shifted your efforts more towards doing a bit more interesting, because I mean, like a detuned sawtooth has its place for sure, but it's not exactly the most exciting synth sound in the world or most interesting synth sound in the world. You know, it's kind of like, it's almost like a tool to use as opposed to like a main element that's supposed to capture my attention. Like I could see that being used as a riser if it was playing that pattern, but it was like rising with pitch, or something. It could be used as a tool, but it's not interesting enough for me personally to be into. I liked the sections without it more. Like, that's cool. It's like mysterious, you know, it's dark, it's Mission Impossible. I'm robbing a bank, you know, I'm trying to disarm the alarm system in the bank, you know, in order to steal this big diamond or something. But then when the super saw comes in, now I'm like fighting a frog, like a cartoon, like a CGI frog or something. So anyway, I hope I'm not trying to shit on that sound specifically, but that is the vibe that it gives me. It's like up until then, I'm like a cool, smooth operator. I'm getting in, nobody sees me. I'm getting shit done, and now I'm fighting a CGI frog with the. That's just what it makes me think. Okay, let's listen to the very end. I like this chopped up vocal thing. It reminds me of like the 2010s era of like electro music. But I do find it's very high passed, and it's contributing to the scooped feel, because you've got like the super deep sub and you've got the super bright vocal, but it feels like it's been high passed at like, I don't know, 1,000 hertz or like 1,500 hertz or something like that. And in that sense, we're kind of missing. It feels like a main element, but it doesn't really extend down into the mid range. So. But overall, it's a very cool track. I just personally don't really love the detune saw thing. If you love it, then keep it. Don't just do shit because I don't like it, because I am one person. But that is how I feel. Okay, last couple of the day. Unknown Error 2, but error is spelled with a 3. So this is really cool. It reminds me of some old school breakbeat shit. Almost like Chemical Brothers or something. I'm digging it. I find that every once in a while that the the bandpass noisy synth thing it kind of hits a harsh kind of frequency. Right there, right around 3,000 or 4,000 hertz. It's kind of every once in a while it'll add up in a way that kind of I'm like, oof, you know. Then the next thing is there's no real bass line, and I know that I'm not to the bass line yet. Maybe this is still like breakbeat beat, but I don't know. I'm waiting for some musical stuff to present itself. It's mostly just drums at this point with like that noisy synth thing, and it all sounds cool, but I'm like, when am I gonna get some musical stuff? So I guess that's when we get the musical stuff. In terms of like this genre, I think it's pretty sick. I think when the bass comes in, you probably should do some side chaining, even not like very obvious side chaining, but there's just some moments where you could hear the bass and the kick drum kind of distort each other. Like you can see right here, just this like hard edge that's happening. So I think for the most part, besides the harshness in that noisy synth thing that happens occasionally, you could even do like a multi-band compressor on that and really narrow in on that what would I say 3 or 4,000 hertz range, and have it so that normally it's just tickling that compressor threshold, but then when those pokey bits happen, it grabs them and pulls them down. But I think you're going to have to dig into the mix and master for when you finally give us like the bass line, because it just gets a bit crunchy, and not like in a good way. It just sounds kind of unintentionally crunchy. So you might have to go through and get a little bit more strategic with how you manage your dynamics. That would be the work of a soft clipper. I mean, it's kind of getting clipped right now, which is kind of the issue. So I would sidechain the bass to the kick drum, but just have a very quick release time so that we're not hearing it pump, but it is getting out of the way. Because when the kick drum hits, there's lots of bass there. We don't need the bass there for that little fraction of a second that the kick drum is there. But as soon as that kick drum's done, bring the bass back up to fill in right behind it, and then that's going to make the master limiter not hate its life so much, because you can see, like this right here. I think it's probably because like your noisy synth thing is also really blossoming in this moment. So it might just be a little. Up until that moment, I didn't really feel like there was any dynamics issues, but when the bass came in, it started to. That seems to fix it. Didn't use a sidechain right on here. Yeah, so I think that would fix it. And then in terms of like, waiting almost 2 minutes to get the musical stuff, that's kind of a genre thing. I don't pretend to be an expert in this genre or really any genre. So if that's what people do, I mean, like, I could see this working in like a DJ set where you're playing breaks and there's other stuff on top of it, and what do you mean assuming Demon Chillin' actually made this? I don't like the insinuation. You're making me suspicious. We don't have the 192 line that we usually have when shit like that happens. Anyway, yeah, so I'll leave that at your discretion in terms of like when to bring the musical stuff in. If I was listening to this like on Spotify, I might skip it. I might, just because like I'd be like, damn, that's a cool break. And then I'd be like, all right, that was a cool break. And then I go to the next song. But that's me listening to music on Spotify for listening purposes. So if you're making this for DJ purposes, that's a different thing. So I'll leave that up to you. But I wonder if you could still tease in a little bit of musical elements earlier on without sacrificing anything in terms of DJing or whatever. You know what I mean? I think getting a little bit of musical elements in beforehand probably would be helpful. You gotta hand me my 3 cents of play. That's optimistic. I don't even think we get that anymore. But yeah, I think that that's proof enough for us. What was I going to say? I think that you got to control that noisy synth a little bit more, especially if it's going to be being played loudly. If it's going to be played out at bars and clubs and on systems and loud, you gotta grab those pokey bits of the grab those and pull them down so it's a little less harsh. Anyway, that's what I think. Last one of the day, we got Aiden Dodge. That's not Aiden Dodge. This is Aiden Dodge. That's not a knife. Okay, beat for somebody. It seems like I got out of the music scene at the right time. Not only is television going away, which is where I make most of my money, but like just making money off of Spotify is anyway. Okay, this is really cool. I like it. It's vibey, as the kids say. I don't know that the clap is the right thing to do there. I think a trappy snare would fit better, especially if you listen to the kick drum and you listen to the clap. The kick is like here, and the clap is like here in terms of like power. There's a power dynamic shift. What's it called? The discrepancy. And I think like a trappy snare would fit better. You could keep that clap in there for the tail, and you could keep it for the texture, but I think it needs like a poop, a poop apparently. What's the tempo? I don't know what a chop snare is. That's 140. Okay. Oops. I live under a rock. Yeah, I was going to say, I thought I had it at 125. No, I definitely did not have it at 125. Let's try 140. Yep, no, you were right at 140. I was looking at a kick thinking it was a clap. All right, let's throw in a snare here. Let's go right to Trapaholics. And then we'll audition a couple different snares and see what feels right. Let's turn this down a little bit. Actually, I think it would be better without the clap. I feel like that, because listen to how tight it sounds without the reverb right here. I think it's a nice contrast between the lushness of the track and the snare being super dry and cut and dry. I think that's it gives it like a lot more power. Just that one change, the beat all of a sudden hits a lot harder. We'll try a few others, but oh, I replaced your track with the snare. Anyway, I think that almost is objectively better. Yeah, I mean, it's great. Honestly, I think the only change I would make is the snare. That is quite the competition we have, Will. This part seems a little out of the blue to me. Everything sounded good and authentic, but the fake brass doesn't. I was on board with the track until it got to that section, and I don't know. I don't think it's the move. It's not the melody, it's the instrument. It's like fake brass, you know? It's not synth brass, it's not real brass, it's some awkward in between. Like, I have a keyboard from 2007 that has a brass preset. So it just doesn't fit the vibe of the track. You could play those notes, but if you're gonna do like a melody thing like that, I don't think it should just come in at the very end of the track. It's just a little random to me, but maybe it'll make sense with the vocals. I don't know. I think change the snare out and then get some vocals on it and then see where that's at. But it is very cool. I dig it. Okay. What do I click? Oh, there we go. I knew it. Okay. Have a good weekend, everybody. I love you, and I will see you next week. And I'll see you soon, Will. That is a threat. Okay. Okay, bye. Muting the mic now.